Welcome or welcome back to my channel, Mostly Paper Crafts. It's been a while since I've had time to create my craft room and even longer since I've had time to create a YouTube video. But I'm back and it's time for the June 2023 My Monthly Hero Kit from Hero Arts. It's beach themed and I am so excited to share it with you. We're taking a look at the June 2023 Hero Arts My Monthly Hero Kit, including the premium kit. So that's the card that comes with the kit. We, of course, have the bag that the kit comes in. Here is the clear stamp set. We've got a beach and ocean theme here. Lots of fun things, a couple of sentiments as well. There's also 6 sheets of watercolor paper back there. We have the coordinating dies as well as this window die. Excellent. I'm excited about that. I think I'll use that more than anything else in this kit actually. We've got 4 reactive ink cubes and then the premium kit. So for just a little bit extra, you get some extra goodies each month. We've got these beautiful shiny iridescent bliss, they're calling them sequins. There's a mix in here of gems and sequins. We've got enamel stickers. This is a 3-piece layering stencil set with some beautiful seashells and some iridescent embossing powder. In addition to the kit this month, I bought 2 add-ons. I really like these sea quotes. They are really big and I think that they'll go with a lot of different stamps and dies that I have. I love the sentiments, love those fonts, and I had to have this die set. Of course, these are the sea creatures, fancy dies. The sea turtle is my favorite, but I really like the jellyfish and our seahorse too. So excited to give these a go. Before I start creating my cards with my new kit, I always go through my older Hero Arts, my monthly hero kits, as well as my stamps and dies, and I pull things that I think would coordinate well. So this is the basket that I pulled of things that are beach themed or ocean themed or tropical themed, and I like to have these handy as I'm working so that I can use older products along with the new. All right, for my first card, I used the 4 included ink cubes as well as an older ink cube. I used the included embossing powder, but also 3 older embossing powders from previous kits. So a white puff, yellow prisma, and the sand. And I also used my black glaze pen. One additional supply that I added was from the December 2020 My Monthly Hero Kit. I really liked the sun rays, so I created my first card with a sunset at the beach using 4 embossing powders, 5 inks, a little bit of time, and I was just very pleased with how this all came out. So a couple of details to talk about here. This, of course, is that sand embossing powder. Then if you look closely at the waterline, you can see I added in some of that white puff embossing powder. And for that, I just used an embossing pen. So I just went over with the pen and sprinkled on the powder. My sentiment here is stacked several times to give that some dimension. You're going to see my sun here is ink blended a little bit, and I actually didn't use the stamp from the set. I just used the round die because I didn't want a white border, so I just used the round die, cut out a piece of cardstock that I had ink blended on, and the only thing that I wasn't really happy with here was that I did my birds and then I did my lines, and I just wasn't happy with how that turned out. So that's what I used the black glaze pen for. So I just went back over them just to give them a little bit more definition. And then I used that black pen on the word sunset here as well. So you can see only the word sunset is there, and that is not heat embossed. That is the black glaze pen. So I was very happy with my first card and definitely was motivated to keep going with this kit. For card number 2, I wanted to use the layering seashell stencils. First, I wanted to pick a color palette. So this is number 60 from the Volume 1 Color Cube from Sarah Renee Clark. And I went through and I picked out inks that matched these colors as best I could. And I skipped the green here, but these are the colors that I used when I was stenciling. But as you can see, there's some dimension and shine here. I did actually go back over 2 of the layers of the stencils with some paste. So the 2 pastes that I used, the first one is a Chroma Glaze in Teal from Brutus Monroe, and the Lawn Fawn Fairy Dust, which has some glitter and sparkle in there. So there's some nice texture on these seashells. I also used 3 die cuts from the Sea Creatures Fancy Dies, which was an add-on set I bought this month. This Hello Friend is from the main stamp set. And then I used some of the enamel stickers as embellishments, as well as a couple of the gemstones from the sequin pack. So a lot going on there. This was stamped in just a black ink, and then I used a white glaze pen, and I used my glitter pen as well to give that a little bit of shine. This circle was from the sun from the main kit, and then I did a slightly larger circle, and I used that same chroma glaze that I used on one of my layers of the stencil just to give it a matching sheen. But lots of detail here, lots of texture, and I was happy with card number 2 as well. For card number 3, I pulled another palette from my color cube. This is number 74. And I really liked this color combination here. The only color that I didn't end up using is this blue, but wow, look at all the detail on this card. So let me tell you what I did here. First, I started with a piece of craft cardstock and I did some splattering, and I used white acrylic as well as a couple of different brown inks, and I did some where I mixed the brown ink with the white so that I have some different shades in there. And then I cut this panel out using this older seashell confetti cover plate. This is from Hero Arts. I've had it for a while. I can't remember the exact name of it, but I used that to cut out that back panel there. Then I stenciled just 1 layer of the seashells using some gold paste. Well, actually my gold paste was all dried up, so I used a white paste with some gold pigment added to get that gold color. That of course was on a teal cardstock. I used some hemp cord from a previous kit. I can't remember what month that was, but it's been a while. It's been in my stash for a bit. So I had cut out the seashells, layered those up, put on some hemp, and my sentiment is from the main stamp set, Sending You an Ocean of Thanks. That's stacked up a few times. The back layer is cut out so that those cords can pass right underneath, and it lays there nice and flat. I added some of the sequins and gems and the enamel stickers from the kit, and lots going on here, but I really loved how card number 3 turned out. Now I want to back up to card number 2 for just a second. I mentioned that I was using some of that teal chroma glaze to create the color for this backer circle. Well, when I was doing that, I was just using a scrap, and that scrap happened to be embossed, and I really liked the look of that glaze on the embossed cardstock. So that inspired card number 4. Now what I did here is I took my Sea Creatures Fancy Dies, and I placed them in an arrangement that I liked, and I taped them all together, and then I ran this through my die cut machine with the embossing mat so that it pressed the dies into the paper but didn't actually cut them out. And then I spread a thin layer of this teal chroma glaze from Brutus Monroe, and it lays in the cuts, and it has a nice sheen, and there's color variation here, and I just absolutely love that. I did stamp Seize the Day from the Sea Quotes add-on from this month, and I added a few sequins and some enamel stickers, as well as a few drops of stickles here and there just to give it a little bit more shine and interest. This is on a black card base, so I did put a white panel on the inside for my message, and I I just absolutely loved how this turned out, but I have to be honest with you, this was not my first attempt at this. I also ended up with this somehow, and then I actually have a couple more cards with the same debossed in design using those same fancy dies. So that will bring us to card number 5. So this one is the same layout of those dies, but this time I had used a blue lunar paste, and I had spread it over using, I think, my finger for this one, and I still didn't love it, but I ran the panel through my machine again with those same dies, and it pressed them in further, and I really did like the texture that that gave. But I didn't run it through quite perfectly, but I didn't want to give up on this, so I turned it into a full panel shaker, which I think covers the imperfections nicely. And I think that this card will certainly make someone smile. So we're using all of those dies, but they're impressed instead of die cut. Got the full panel shaker. I've also got one of those seashells. It's the same seashell as there, die cut out of some sparkly white cardstock. This is a black card base, so I have a white insert in there for my message. And that is card number 5. For card number 6, I knew I wanted to make a rainbow, so we've got most of a rainbow here. I really just needed to add in a green, so this is from a previous kit. So I did some ink blending, and the intention was that I was going to put this on a card behind the palm tree scene, so behind this, but I covered up so much of my pretty ink blending that I had to go with another design. Well, you guessed it, this is actually the same layout again as the previous 2 cards, but this time when I did the impression, it just didn't stand out enough. So I went back and used those same dies to cut out my shapes using a white glitter paper, and then I just glued them on top in that same arrangement. I really loved this ink blended background because not only do we have that beautiful rainbow, but if you look closely, you can see some splattering there. I went through and I splattered each of those 5 colors, just mixing them with some water and flicking them around with my paintbrush. So there's a lot of visual texture there, and I really love that vivid, bright, neonish rainbow. The Sending You an Ocean of Thanks is heat embossed. We've got a thin black frame here, and I just love these sea creatures, so how could I not love this card? I was so excited to make card number 7 because I actually got to see humpback whales for the first time this year. My new husband and I went on our honeymoon and we did an Alaskan cruise, and we saw more humpback whales than I could count. But I was so excited to make this card. But it may not look like I used the kit, but I did. So we started with a light blue cardstock. I did some ink blending with a splash reactive ink down here at the bottom. And then if you look up here at the top, this is just one layer of the water layering stamps. So that's that. And I used a clear ink with the included embossing powder. So there actually are a lot of elements that are from this month's kit, as well as an add-on. This Go With The Flow is from the Sea Quote stamp set. And this whale, I think the set was from last year, but it's called Dream Accessories Fancy Dies. I just think this whale is so amazing. So I cut him out of black and gray cardstock and added some details with my white gel pen. And I think my favorite part about this card is probably the whale, but I really like how the sentiment is curved and the whale is curved. And so I really wanted my mat to be off center. So I went ahead and I tilted my blue panel on that black card base. Of course, we have a white insert inside so we can write our message, and we have a beautiful Go With The Flow card. Take a look at card number 8. We have another sunset on the beach, and this card is a bit different than the first one that I showed you, but it does use some of the same elements. So I used the same ink pads that came in the kit, And you can see we've got the water and the dark blue. I had to add on, oops, added this one on from a previous kit, but we've got the dark blue and the light blue, and then we've got these pink and oranges in the sky. Again, I die cut my circle. You might recognize these sun rays, but it's a little different than the first one. So I'll show you the first one so we can compare. The clouds are different, and then these sun rays look different too. So I want to tell you what I did. I used more from this December 2020 kit. So I used the 3 layering stamps for my clouds, as well as this one again for the sun rays. But for the sun rays, since I couldn't really stamp them in yellow, they wouldn't show up. And I didn't really want to use this same embossing powder again because I didn't think that would show up well over these clouds either. So I pulled another previously released embossing powder from a previous kit. This was yellow Prisma. I think it might have actually came with the same kit with this cloud, and I created my sunset that way. So I loved how that turned out. On my first card, I used the sand embossing powder, but on this card, I used the same technique I did for the card with the die cut background. So this was craft, and then I did some splattering with some brown inks and some white paint, and I love that sandy look. Seize the Day is a sentiment I have used a couple of times in my 10 cards, but I thought that that one fit the best with this beachy scene. I'm not sure why, but I was having a hard time figuring out how I wanted to use this window die. And I don't know why, because I absolutely love it. It was actually the first element of the kit that I tried out, and I feel like I'm going to use it so many times in the future, but I just couldn't figure out how I wanted it. But I came up with something. So I am just, wow. I just absolutely love the background that I created for this card. So let's talk about the background first. It's got that iridescent shimmer because I used the included embossing powder from the kit, and this had started on a pale greenish blue cardstock, and the stamp that I used is actually a bold print. It's this one, which is fabulous. This is Tropical Foliage, and I just did it using a clear ink. I used Versamark. And then I use that iridescent embossing powder, and I get this stunning background. So once I got that idea, I knew exactly how I wanted to finish this card. This is the watercolor paper that was included in the kit, so I knew I should do a little bit of watercoloring, just some basic stuff here. I actually used my Spectrum Noir aqua markers, and I did the coloring with those, and not a water pen, because I don't love water pens, but just a brush and some clean water. Kept it pretty simple. This sentiment is from an older kit. I'll pull that in just a moment. We've got a little bit of stickles on our flower centers and a couple of those enamel stickers, but other than that, this is pretty simple. I did tear around my sentiment just because I wanted something a little bit different, and I liked how that turned out. So that stamp is from June of 2020. And it's this one, You Are Wonderful. I really thought I was going to be able to use this one more with my 10 cards, especially because we've got another humpback whale there, but I'll just have to save those ideas for another day. Well, I didn't run out of supplies or ideas, but for my 10th card, I chose to make a scrap card. I really like to take a look at the pieces that are left over from what I've already been making and turn them into something too. So for my 10th card, we've got some strips that were left over from my ink blended rainbow card, as well as a couple of black strips that are left over from a panel that I cut. We've got 3 of the stenciled seashells with that gold texture paste in there that I created, as well as the Hello Friend stamp from the set. So a clean and simple card for card number 10, something a little bit different to finish off the 10 cards for the month. I can't tell you how much fun I had getting back into my craft room and getting to spend some time being creative. So these cards really brought me a lot of joy, and I got to practice a lot of techniques that I haven't had time to do in a while. So my husband was very happy that I was in here and occupied as well. I always talk about how I want to spend time in my craft room, but I don't always have the energy for it. It doesn't always fit into the day. So I was very happy to get back to what I love, get back to creating, and get back to creating a video to share with you all. These are my 10 cards for June 2023. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that I will see you again soon. Go make something beautiful.